everything for Konveau came to me at once. And it's like, it's crazy because when I get an idea, everything all at once. Like, it doesn't, like, additional pieces come later, but like the bulk of the idea, the branding, what the app does, all of that came to me at once. And I was like, I got it.
Welcome to Innovator Tribe Outside the Bubble,
a show about bridging the gap between the inspiration of an idea to the creation of a product.
What's going on, Ahmad?
What's good, Toye? How you feeling?
Hey, life's good, bro. Life's good. I cannot complain.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to be reconnecting again, man. I'm really enjoying having this podcast here because we get to have these dope conversations about tech, business, technology, and nerd out just for like an hour with a really cool entrepreneur. So yeah, I'm super excited about our interview today.
Yeah, me too, man. I mean, to be honest, like, you know, this whole Innovator Tribe Outside the Bubble was a little selfish because, you know, me and Ahmad talk about business in technology businesses specifically. So being able to really just talk to people that are building companies and pursuing, you know, their dreams is almost like a weekly refreshment, if you will.
We're gonna get Diddy to like package that, you know. Refreshing. No, but like, it's cool just to be surrounded by people who are smarter than myself, because I always one that's seeking out learning new things and new businesses or just concepts and stuff. So it was very selfish for us to create this podcast, but hey, now we got a whole audience of people enjoying this information too.
Yeah. I mean, being able to share this with, you know, people across the world, because I mean, we've literally since launched this thing a couple weeks ago, we literally are getting people from Australia, Nicaragua.
Yeah, I mean,
Philippines.
We're just missing. I don't think we have any European listeners yet. So, hey, if anybody know people out in Europe, then we can get people in, like, I think almost every continent will be represented. We'll look at the numbers again, but yeah, it's been cool just to like have that reach just starting out too. Yeah, and you know, there's definitely more to come, and today's episode is definitely one of those stories that you will take a lot from. Jason Johnson of Konveau, one of the founders of Konveau, is joining us to talk about Konveau and his story. Yeah, man, the guy is super smart, undergrad, master's, PhD, and this really intertwined technology all throughout that concept. I mean, all throughout his story and his background. But
we got to highlight the fact that he went from, being a rapper and rapping with Lupe Fiasco to now being a PhD student who started his own tech company. Like, that story is just crazy to me.
It's just the colorfulness of, you know, a Chicago guy from the South Side. So, you know, that's all I'm going to say. More about Jason, though, man. He also touches on the importance of just not getting caught up in securing VC funding. He really focused in a lot of conversations on strategies about acquiring customers for market validation. So a lot of good insights and gems were dropped on that too.
Yeah. And then one of the things I think, you know, our audience will take a lot from is his experience working with contract developers. His co-founder is a developer, but in order to kind of get the application out and up into the public sooner, they actually decided to work with an outside contractor to help develop their mobile app. And, you know, they had some difficulties there, but I think, you know, the lesson that he was able to learn, he definitely shared with us in today's show. So, you know, I'm definitely looking forward to it. And before we get into it, please
subscribe and
rate. You know, any sort of feedback that you guys can give us, you know, via the reviews, via the star rating, please do. And also subscribe to the show. That definitely allows us to continue, you know, providing you guys with just quality content and great stories. But it also provides us with the feedback that allows us to know how we can improve the show specifically for our audience.
I mean, everybody's giving out 5-star reviews, so I'm just saying, if you don't give a 5-star review, then I mean, you're missing out on the crowd. Peer pressure works, right? But but no, seriously. On the other note, you can also connect with us on social media as well too. Instagram, really Twitter and Facebook, where we're heavy out there. This at Innovator Tribe. And you could talk with us. We can continue the conversations.
Yes. And we're definitely looking forward to connecting with all of you guys all over the world. Like, share, rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into this story about Jason.
Let's get into it, man.
All right.
Cool breeze.
But before we dive into that conversation and learn more about the technology you're developing, we ask everybody one question. We don't prepare you for this question, but I know you can answer it. Okay. But it's something that's fundamental. It's something fundamental to all entrepreneurs. You got to get in that zone when you're about to do a pitch or meeting with some investors. So we always like to ask people, what is that one song? For me, it's a hip hop song, but it could be any type of genre. But what's that one song that gets you in that zone before you're about to deliver a pitch or meet with investors?
Amazing. Kanye West.
Okay. Yeah, that would that just come. You just listened to it right before he got on.
Yeah, I think when Jeezy get on there, it's really on there. Like, yeah. That's it.
Game over. So whenever that hits play, it's game time. I like that. I like that.
Definitely.
Cool. So in us doing some research about you, it seems like you've just been an entrepreneur, for the last few years. From what I can tell, you've had a few entrepreneurial endeavors prior to starting Konveau. So, one of the things that I'm definitely interested in, because I feel like typically when people kind of venture into entrepreneurship, they're usually kind of inspired to kind of go down that journey. And I'm kind of curious to know, like, what was, that inspiration for you to kind of go down the entrepreneurship journey?
Okay, so pretty much, I think it all started when I was in graduate school, finishing my master's in industrial organizational psychology. So pretty much, for those who aren't familiar with that discipline, whenever I say it, people say, "Oh, that sounds fancy. Tell me more about it." So basically, with IO psychology, IO short for industrial organizational psychology, it's basically, you've seen Office Space and the two Bobs, how they make decisions on who gets hired, who gets fired, how they improve the company, different strategies, as far as their human capital. That's what people who have a master's in who have an education in industrial organizational psychology does. So pretty much, when I started looking at small businesses, though, I had a recognition that like they weren't really getting those types of services, right? As far as being able to, it's one thing. It was plenty of resources to teach small business owners how to like launch a business plan or et cetera, et cetera. But there wasn't anything that told them, okay, based on your personality, you should be doing this, or you should work this way, or based on your personality, you probably need to bring these type of people on board, or based on your natural strengths, this is a good idea that you can execute as far as, an entrepreneurial endeavor or a good problem to solve. So that's what I really became interested in. And as far as entrepreneurship overall, my father was an entrepreneur. Like, my father had a couple different businesses. He had a construction firm. He also had like an ice cream business, which is like my favorite, because when I was a kid, I would like, when he would like, so he had all these different workers across the city, and he had like them working, like pushing ice cream carts. So he had this fleet of guys who pushed the ice cream carts. He built them all himself. So when he would go pick up the deliveries and drop them off to his respective employees, I would go along with him. I'll get high on his supply a little bit. Snatch me a little, snatch an ice cream, snatch an ice cream sandwich or something like that. But chocolate Eclair, all that. I can name every type of ice cream back from the 80s and 90s if we went into that conversation. But so pretty much I just kind of thought, okay, that's what you do. You launch a business, et cetera, et cetera. Plus, I used to do music before as well. So,
oh, really?
I used to be.
Oh, what's out as far as as far as like singing and rapping or producing?
Rapping and producing. I was good friends with Lupe Fiasco. I got some old stuff that if anybody wanted to hear it, I could let you guys check it out. But
okay, we'll definitely include that in the show notes.
Yeah, Fahrenheit 115 mixtapes. Yeah, that was my jam. Yeah, Fahrenheit 115. I was a fan.
Yep. I was in there when they recorded the majority of that. Like,
oh wow,
other records also. A lot of the earlier joints, before Kick Push and everything. So, pretty much.
So I'm guessing that means you're from the West Side too, then.
I'm from the South Side. He went to high school in Harvey. He went to Thornton. So.
Oh really? I thought he was from the West Side.
Yeah, he was originally from out west. But by the time I think that he got into junior high, he moved to Harvey with his father, and they lived like right off of Sibley Boulevard, right off of Sibley Boulevard in Halstead which is 147th Street. So I actually met him through a mutual friend who went to Thornton, because I went to Thornton for one semester, but I'm a year older than him, so I was gone, but I transferred to Thornwood. So I had a friend who was part of their crew, 1500s. At Thornton, and they connected us, and then we started doing music and stuff together. But just the combined experience of watching my father be an entrepreneur, originally thinking I was going to be a recording artist, and then it was just like, okay, working a job isn't really what I ultimately want to do. So I mean, that's how the whole journey of entrepreneurship began.
It seems like entrepreneurship was just already in your DNA growing up as a kid. Your education has been more so on the liberal arts side. I know you're pursuing your dissertation from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. How did you balance between pursuing psychology during your educational years to your continuing interest in entrepreneurship and learning how to be a web developer and graphic designer? How did all of those interests collide together?
So pretty much, necessity is the mother of innovation and mastering new things. So pretty much started off doing the music. Felt like I got a little too old. Then I was like, okay, I'm gonna start a business. So that was part of that story as well. But with web, so pretty much I started. My first company was called Identity Engineers, which, like I stated, was a consultancy that worked with people to help them start businesses tailored to their personality strengths. And then later on we started doing some branding based on personalities, branding based on psychology and web development and all of that. But pretty much, before it became Identity Engineers, it was this company. It was called Do You. It was funny. It was spelled how do I spell it? DUYOO or something. And it was an acronym, but I forgot what it stood for at this point. So pretty much through that process, I needed, flyers, business cards, and all of that. And I was cheap. I didn't want to pay for it. So I had always been a creative, so I just kind of picked up Photoshop, got good at it, really fast. Same thing, needed a website.
What did you use to get up to speed on a Photoshop? Did you use any sort of like online classes or anything like that, or did you take a class, or you just got in there and started fiddling with it?
I just got in and started digging with it. So it was familiar enough because when I was in college and we would do mixtapes and stuff, there was this Microsoft software called Picture It, I believe. I think it was called Picture It, where it was very similar to Photoshop. So once I picked up Photoshop, it was kind of like, I had enough analogs to picture it where I just kind of picked it up. So same thing with the web development. Started off using Wix, the whole, when they was doing the Flash, web design and all of that. But then eventually, I had a friend of mine who was a web developer, Donald O'Connor, and he kind of started teaching me how to do some actual web development, some coding, taught me how to use Firebug to basically learn how to code. So basically, when I was, and I wouldn't say I'm like phenomenal at it, but I knew enough PHP where I could like basically customize a WordPress design to my liking for the most part. But I basically learned how to I learned code basically through Firebug, just literally, doing the development in Mozilla Firefox, putting the Firebug plugin in and just looking at different elements on the screen and then once you click on something, it shows you where it is in the code. So he basically showed me the basics using Firebug, and that's kind of how I started doing the development for identity engineers as well.
Main takeaway, you wanted to get to the next step. So you learn how to master a new skill, then just started plugging away, which allow you to add that new skill to your toolbox. And I'm pretty sure that led you to progress quickly with Konveau. But take us back to the moments before that you realized you wanted to create this app for events. What's the backstory before you actually started building?
Okay, so what happened with identity engineers was originally I started off doing the small business consulting using personality type. We started doing then as part of that service, we started offering the graphic design and the web development, because basically what we started off doing was, okay, once we kind of helped you learn your personality type and what type of business you should be launching or how you should be operating in your existing business, based on those strengths, I kind of got into this book called The Hero and the Outlaw, where I learned a lot about archetypes, which is like basically personalities for brands, right? And for your verbiage, your messaging, things of that nature. So I started diving into archetypes, and then we started offering the graphic design and the web development using archetypes, right? But then I started then I got to a point where I hated going to networking events because I would have to go to networking events to get customers and to get clients and all of that. So one day I was in the bathroom, I was washing my hands or something, and then it just hit me. What if I knew everybody's personality type, at the event, right?
I love those moments.
Because for me, like I had gotten to the point where I knew like Myers-Briggs so well, I could have a conversation with somebody in a few minutes and be able to guesstimate their type. So, but I was thinking like, what if there was an event where I actually was able to know everybody's type so I could know exactly what to say and do when I first started connecting with people. So then I had an idea for this event called Personality Powered Networking. So Personality Powered Networking, I decided to do my own networking event, and I called it Personality Powered Networking, like I said in the pitch. But pretty much with that event, I created a 4-question personality test, and then on the back of the personality test was a socialization guide to let you know how your personality interacted with every other personality type in the room, and then you would get a name tag color-coded with your personality type so that everybody in the room can quickly identify you, look at the guide, and then approach you based on that. So, the first personality-powered networking event I did was at this loft called IAEOU. It was a arts incubator for small business owners who are creatives. I was sat on the board at the time for that organization. So I had the first personality-powered networking event there. It was actually doubled as a birthday party. That was like in 2012. I had about 70 people come out. Everybody loved the concept. They loved the experience. Then the second personality-powered networking I did, I was part of the Metropolitan Board of the Chicago Urban League. At the time, I was personal and professional development chair. So they had the idea, why don't you do this event for, our join week, right? So then we did the next one at Greg Kiva. That's where we did it at. So I did it there with Metro Board, and it was a huge turnout, like a huge turnout. People loved the event. People made connections when you were at the event. Nobody was sitting down and talking. Nobody was sitting down. Everybody was going around talking to each other. It was just a great experience. So then I partnered with Muhammad Shabazz. You guys know Muhammad, don't you? So then
I've met him before. I've been to a couple of his events in
Black
Chicago.
Alumni Network. So then I partnered with Muhammad for one at Sawtooth the following month. And then that one went really well as well. So then I just started doing them myself. And then what ended up happening was we ended up doing them in different markets. So then we had an opportunity to do it in Atlanta. We did it in Atlanta twice. And we did one in Washington, D.C. And it was like, all of them were like great experiences for the most part. So pretty much, I started using that event as a way to kind of find clients. But then it got to the point I was like, well, this event could be a monetization stream itself. Because what ended up happening was I had organizations reaching out to me to host and facilitate personality powered networking at their events. So then I ended up getting to the point where I ended up starting just doing personality powered networking through identity engineers and then just doing workshops. So then I stopped doing the coaching and I just ended up doing like a company will bring me in to do a team building based on using personality to help them communicate more effectively. And then so that'd be a monetization stream, and then just doing the networking event, people paying me to facilitate it became a revenue stream. So by the time the company evolved, those were the only two things I was doing. But then I decided to go back and get a PhD because a lot of the opportunities I was going after for speaking engagements and everything, I know it's my competitions with doctors. PhD in this, PhD in that, PhD in this, and it's just like, but that's how it is in academia. Hi, I'm a PhD in organization.
It kind of, I guess lends some sort of credibility,
right, to
that. Yeah, for sure.
Because I had two things going against me. I'm young and I'm black. Most of the people I was competing with for speaking opportunities were like in their 50s, got 20, 30 years of research underneath them, or if they were younger, they went to like an Ivy League school, or like but they all had doctor in front of their name, and I didn't. So
yeah, I was gonna ask you. So that's what spurred you to go ahead and go back to school and get your doctorate.
Yep. And then what happened was when I entered the PhD program, it was like, I ain't really got time to get clients, right? So what ended up happening was I ended up starting off with a contract with the Chicago Urban League Entrepreneurship Center to do business coaching there, which eventually turned to me just, doing that and teaching the entrepreneurship classes there. And then because I didn't have time to get clients. So after about a year and a half of doing that, 2 years of doing an entrepreneurship center at the Urban League, and then doing the, which I still do, and then doing like the being a PhD student, the entrepreneurial bug kind of started, scratching again. Like, well, I want to do another venture.
I don't think it ever went away from you though. The one major takeaway I'm already getting right now is that the idea didn't happen by accident. You had key moments that built up to that final epiphany moment that you just described, whether it was your dad being an entrepreneur, to you studying psychology, also learning the skill sets within Photoshop, to eventually having that final epiphany moment that you described just moments ago. All of those prior events contributed to that one key moment.
I would absolutely agree with that. It's almost like the gumbo finally, started boiling. Like I put a little bit of this in, put a little bit of that in, and it's like now it's like simmering. And I can totally agree with you on that.
Yeah. So one thing that I find pretty interesting about your story is, obviously you're an entrepreneur before you started your PhD program, and when you actually launched Konveau as a mobile app, was it already in the works before you started your program, or was it after you started your program that you decided to go ahead and create an app?
So after I started my program. So what happened was when I started my program, I started doing business coaching and teaching at the Chicago Urban League Entrepreneurship Center. just because it was difficult for me to really have to do the networking and whatnot to get clients for identity engineers. So, I started doing that. The work was very, very rewarding because basically all I did was sit down with small business owners and help them grow their ideas, which is what I've been doing, which what I was doing with identity engineers for the most part. But then the entrepreneurial bug started scratching again. So pretty much out at that point, I had become president of the Metropolitan Board of the Chicago Urban League, which is the young professionals, and my technology chair at the time for Metro Board ended up being my co-founder. So we literally sat down. We literally decided to meet up because I wanted to get back into entrepreneurship, but I wanted to do something in tech. And he was a developer. So I never forget it. It was a snowy Saturday morning. We was supposed to meet at Currency Exchange on 55th. Currency Exchange Cafe, but it was closed. So we came back to my crib and we sat down and we brainstormed on what we could do. So we were kind of originally looking at doing a venture in the ed tech space because he had an education background. He used to be an instructor, and teaching is a passion of mine. So we were thinking about and then with me being a PhD student, it was like the whole ed tech thing was kind of salient in my mind. So we ran through a few ideas, and then we really didn't settle on anything. And then at that moment, everything for Konveau came to me at once. I'm like, I got it. And it's crazy because when I get an idea, everything comes like all at once. Like it doesn't additional pieces come later, but the bulk of the idea, the branding, what the app does, all of that came to me at once. And I was like, I got it. And then we talked about it. I was like, I even got a name for it already. And we talked about it, et cetera, et cetera. The reason Konveau ended up being spelt like it looks French is because, the regular name was the regular spelling was taken. So we tried a bunch of different combinations. And when I was like, let me try it this way. Because phonetically, when you pronounce it, it's Konveau. But it looks French. It looks like, we down in New Orleans. But when I looked at it, I was like, I like it, and that's how we ended up settling on the name. So from there, we started working on the concept, what it would look like, et cetera, et cetera. So that was the beginning of the process.
I think the major takeaway for our listeners is that you keep using the word we. So when you're in that early stage and you have that epiphany moment, you realize that you need to join forces with someone to begin that journey with you. And it helps with keeping ideas flowing and figuring out action steps to build something that's more of a representation of the marketplace. That's amazing, man. That's really amazing. What were some of the challenges after you guys did the brainstorming and built that first version to go after your target market?
Oh, Lord Jesus. Don't even take me through this process.
Oh, no, I'm taking you there. I'm taking you there.
You're making me relive a nightmare. Basically,
hey, entrepreneurship feels like that sometimes.
Yeah, you got me. I'm gonna wake up in the middle of the night tonight.
Cold sweat. Why did I do this to myself?
But so basically, what ended up happening was around shortly after the time we came up with the concept, I had been invited by McDonald's Corporation to do a presentation there. A team building for they had a young professional network within the McDonald's ecosystem. So this was that affinity group within McDonald's Corporation. So I was invited in to do a workshop. So at the time, the contact there was a colleague of mine. And I mentioned Konveau in passing, this is what I'm working on next, this, that, whatever. And she was like, oh, we would love to have that there. Could we use the app can we make it an event and can we use the app? And I'm like, yeah, we can. So at the time, we were kind of looking at, okay, how do we want to build this, right? So Jason was a PHP wizard, but we didn't.
Jason and Jason.
Jason and Jason. Yeah, that's my co-founder's name is Jason too, Jason Trish. But he was a PHP wizard at the time. So the issue was, though, we didn't really want to build it in PHP because if it wasn't sexy enough underneath the hood. But at the same time, we wanted to make this deadline to have an MVP ready for McDonald's. So
oh, wow.
What ended up happening was we tried outsourcing. So we reached out to some folks who referred a firm in India, Clarion Technologies. So we tried working with Clarion. They said they could have it done in because the event was about 5 weeks out. So they said we can have it done in 3 weeks, right? I always hear the same story whenever somebody outsources in India. It's always a nightmare. Pretty much.
That's gonna be my next question.
Everything that we asked them to do, it wasn't done. When we would ask them so do you we'll explain what we wanted done, and then we'd be like, do you understand? And they'll be like, yeah. But when they was not in their head saying yeah, it doesn't mean they understand intellectually what you're asking. It was like, yeah, we hear you. That's basically what it was. So long story short, I ain't gonna go too much detail with that. That ended up being a
well, we actually don't want that long story to be too short, because I think there's definitely some valuable lessons in there that I feel like our audience would definitely appreciate. So, I'm kind of curious. So you said you were able to get into you were able to get this essentially a development shop. It was essentially through a referral.
Yeah, a contact of ours recommended that they use them, but we used them. Yeah.
Okay, and was that the only dev shop that you guys looked at, or you guys looked at other options?
Yeah, because we were kind of in a hurry, and pretty much from what we understood, one of the major things also is a firm oversees their ability to speak good English, and when we met with the representatives, their English was impeccable. So we were just like, okay, they were recommended by a trusted contact. Language is going to be an issue. So we decided to go ahead and do the project with them. So what ended up happening was, as we were working with them, they were sending us invoices that weren't part of the original agreement. So they
can we talk about that though? Because so I've definitely had some very bad experiences. I know a lot of first time tech entrepreneurs have had some very bad and maybe even some good experiences working with dev shops, especially offshore dev shops. So when you actually approach them, was it just a conversation, or did you guys have any sort of wireframes? Did you produce any user stories or anything like that?
We had a wireframe. Matter of fact, we had better than a wireframe. We built the whole thing on Proto.io. We built the whole thing the way it was supposed to look on Proto.io. Even so,
what's Proto.io for the audience?
Yeah, Proto.io is a interactive wireframing platform. So basically, it allows you to build a wireframe that looks just like the way the app would actually look, and it also has an app that you can download where you can actually see how it looks on your phone. So pretty much with Proto.io, when you build it out in Proto, it's basically like using it's almost like using
Sounds like a high fidelity wireframe
that actually behaves the way the app basically behaves. So when you push a button, it goes to this particular page. When you do this, it does that. We basically built it out. So not only was the actual way it was supposed to look built out, the whole flow, even down to effects and everything, was all already mapped out. But it was still ruined. So pretty much they were invoicing us for the wrong price. So we agreed and we signed agreements that stated that, this is the rate we'll be paying, but then we'll get an invoice for a rate that was much more than what we originally agreed. And what we ended up doing, and thank God, and I'm glad, we had the foresight to do this, we just didn't pay them if things wasn't right. We just didn't pay them. So we ended up just walking away from the contract. We just ended up walking. So basically, since they violated the contract, and they several times we just walked away from it, and we thank God we wasn't paying them, because Jason was real adamant about, no, we don't pay them until this particular outcome is done. So
Yeah.
luckily we were able to walk away. We wasted time. We weren't able to get the McDonald's. We weren't able to have it ready for McDonald's. I still rocked the presentation, but we weren't able to use Konveau. Yeah, so then Jason just went ahead and started, trying to build it himself. So the great thing about Jason is he can learn anything really, really fast. So the technology stack that we were using to build, it was a mean stack platform. The MVP was a mean stack app. So basically, we were using AngularJS, Node.js, Express, and MongoDB. So Jason wasn't familiar with any of that at first, but like in a matter of like a couple months, he mastered it all. So he ended up building the MVP. So we had it ready, I think like late December 2015, January 2016. So that's when we finally had the first MVP built.
Your co-founder learning how to master those skills, and just for our listeners, those are programming languages that you use, whether front end or back end, to power your application. You don't have to master those tools. I know I don't. I just connect with really smart people like you did, Jason, who can learn those skill sets and apply them to your idea to get it up and off the ground. I was hoping, Jason, you can fill in a gap in your story. You got to the MVP. You got the MVP up, but describe the point between MVP and being on the Technori stage pitching your company. What were the key milestones in that gap?
So a couple of milestones were, we started doing some early events, because what we wanted to do, we wanted to beta test. So I know one of the early events we did, I think probably one of the first event, was the State of the Black Tech Ecosystem event last December with, or was it last January? Whatever, the first one they did, we used Konveau there. That was like the first time it was ever used. Also, big shout out to Ron Platt and Darren Roca of Civilized Empire. They had a monthly networking event called Mid-Month Mixer. We was able to use the platform there monthly. Got a lot of good feedback regarding improving things. We added, as a result of the feedback that we got at some of those events, we ended up adding a lot of things that we originally didn't have, as we found out what the customer wanted to improve their networking experience. Such as I was dead set against in-app messaging at first. But then after a couple of Civilized Empire events, it was like, yeah, maybe we should include this. And then a couple other features as well. But then the big game changer for me was when I went to PowerMoves in Miami in February of 2016. I was actually referred by a really good friend of mine, Thomas K.R. Stovall, founder of I'm Black in Tech, and also he has a startup called Candid Microfeedback. So Thomas was a PowerMoves alumni, gave me a recommendation. I connected with them. They liked me, so they invited me to the boot camp. So the boot camp was in Miami the boot camp was in Miami in February of 2016. Leading up to the boot camp, we had like 6 virtual sessions, and that experience really changed my whole outlook. So pretty much, we had a boot camp. They did a lot of pitch coaching with us, and I got to thank John Guyton, who was the pitch coach for at PowerMoves, because pretty much he's the one who pretty much gave me the formula and the blueprint on how to do a good pitch. Because I had pitched prior before. The first pitch I ever did was at Southside Pitch at Polsky Exchange. Back then it was Chicago Innovation Exchange. We came in second place, so to had never pitched before, to come in second place, that wasn't bad. But I was a little salty because the people who beat me, Go Dutch, really good friends of mine, they were actually students in my entrepreneurship class at the league. So it was kind of like, yeah, it was kind of like, I was happy, but it was like, oh, the students beat me. Like, it was kind of one of those situations. But, they did an amazing job. They got a great platform. But yeah, I was a little salty about that. But, but that was my first time pitching. And that was their first time pitching too, also, I believe. But went to PowerMoves.
Yeah, so can you tell us what exactly PowerMoves is? Is it an incubator accelerator? Is it you said a boot camp? Is it like a pitch boot camp? What is PowerMoves exactly?
Is a business boot camp accelerator for tech founders of color. So basically, it's one of the largest. It's probably like the largest one. So it started off in New Orleans, where they used to have PowerMoves at Essence Fest. But then they started developing partnerships. They started doing PowerMoves in Detroit. They did it in a couple other cities, but then they did it in Miami. So that was the first one they did in Miami. I was part of the inaugural group for the PowerMoves Miami. So pretty much when I was there, they had, when I say it was creme de la creme as far as the panelists, the speakers, whatever. You know how they say only less than 1% of Black companies founded by Black founders actually get funding. All of them were there. All of them were there. And it was crazy when you're sitting down and you're having drinks with brothers who look just like you. And you having, we're all drinking, talking. And then they're like, well, my first deal, I got jabbed. All I walked away with was 30 mil. I'm like, 30 mil off your first exit? And you got jabbed?
I mean, drop some of the names of these people that were there. Our listeners may not know some of these people.
Okay. So Ben Young, Nexercise, Ben and his company Swerkit, they received the largest tech deal on Shark Tank. I think they got 150 million for only 10% of the company with Mark Cuban. Only 10% of the company. Not 1.5 million. 1.5 million. I'm sorry, 1.5 for only 10%. But
so that's still a $15 million valuation, though.
Yeah. So, but then there's other people. What's his name? The guy who works at Slack right now. His name escapes me right now. Miley something. Leslie Miley. Leslie Miley. He was there. Another guy. What's the gentleman's name? I don't know why I have a brain freeze right now, but I know that I can name some of the companies. Stephanie, I can't think. Stephanie's last name escapes me right now, but the founder of Blendor, that's a platform that allows people to recruit talent without actually seeing their ethnicity and all of that, just like a blind.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard about the application.
Stephanie was there.
And this was all just 2016.
Yeah, all this was 2016. So it was a lot of,
wow.
It was a lot of players. It was a lot of major players there. So
that's
it was
awesome.
So yeah, and then when I say we were like we were front and center with them. Like it wasn't like large auditoriums and we were in the room. Now they were literally in our classroom. Yo, y'all got to do this. Talking to us about our businesses 101 and all of that. So it was a really great experience. So after that, and after the pitch coaching, I guess my swag had turned all the way up at that point.
Okay, that's what I want to talk about, because you got this amazing training in Miami. You're probably jacked up with energy and new ideas. What did you take back to Chicago with you? Were there some lessons learned from that training that you started to apply to your company? And did you see some results with the marketplace responding to those new strategies? Share a little bit about that story.
So one of the main keys I took away was self-acceleration. So pretty much with the way the market's changing right now, investors are taking less risk. And then especially in the Midwest, honestly, you got to get traction to get anything in the Midwest, to be honest, just because of the way the culture is. So they really emphasize self-acceleration, getting yourself to the point where you're generating revenue, where you're getting customers, Rodney Williams, another person that was there for listener, he was there also. But yeah, just accelerating your company, getting customers, getting week after week growth, etc. That's what really was emphasized. So like the way they were teaching us, the thing they left us with was grow your company, get money when you need it. Where a lot of times when you're entering the tech space for the first time, the whole idea is, oh, let me go get let me try to get funding, let me try to get investment initially, right? So people were taking like seed capital on just building the MVP, right? So you already in the hole, like you already got somebody who owns a piece of the company before you even made a cent at all. So one of the things that they really, because what happens is if you focus on self-acceleration and you're able to get some traction yourself, you develop sound principles as a company. You develop the right culture. And then, whereas in reality, like sometimes when you get a cash infusion too early, you might not manage that money the way you should manage it because you haven't developed good principles and habits, right? So the thing is, when you're able to kind of do get some traction early, you're more desirable to the company, to investors, because you got money, right? You're showing that you're validating that you have some product market fit because you got customers. Number two, it gives you a little bit more leverage because you can say we've done this already, right? Versus not being able to say you've done anything. And number three, you develop like good principles and habits as far as managing your company, as far as managing it lean and all of those things. So that was one of the major things that I walked away with as far as from there, is just really, trying to self-accelerate and really developing a business model that you can generate revenue from. Because let's be honest, when your skin's a certain color, you just can't say, you can't be like Snapchat. Oh, we'll finish it. We'll figure out a monetization stream eventually, or like Facebook. Oh, we'll eventually figure one out. Like you can't do that. So I mean,
that's real.
I mean, when your skin a certain color, you got to come out. You got to come out getting customers off the gate. So that was one of the things.
Yeah, they're definitely asking for a proof of concept a lot quicker. And if you don't have it, then they're closing the door
because they pattern match. They pattern match. So yeah. And I'm pretty sure you can, you definitely understand that being, being the fact that you're getting your PhD in psychology, right? What did they call it? Subconscious bias, or what's it called? Yeah. Everybody has subconscious beliefs and biases that limit, that shape how we perceive the world. So everybody operates from a particular paradigm, and sometimes these assumptions are so subconscious that you don't even recognize you're operating from them. Like they just are your mode of operation. So a lot of times when an investor is looking at a black founder, they're not thinking, oh, I'm not going to give these people this money because they're black. They're just, I don't know, it's just something about, I don't know, I can't put my finger on it, but I think we're going to hold off right now. You know what I mean? So it's not that they're purposely being, it's not that they're purposely discriminating. It's just that's when you have those subconscious.
The pattern matching.
And then of course there's the pattern matching. Certain, education, particular age, business founder, technical founder, yada yada yada.
Yeah. And that's exactly, why we're doing this, right? We just want to get those people that don't match those patterns to still see people that are out here, building applications, building technology businesses, and being successful at it. And I think, you're a perfect example of that. And we definitely want to get to, the point where talk about, where Konveau is now. But, we also want to talk about, so you got the MVP going, right? How so you went from MV, so you went to Miami. At what point did you actually develop the app? Like what was that? Can you kind of talk a little bit about that journey to actually getting a mobile app in the App Store?
Okay, so pretty much we had the MVP. The MVP was a web app. So basically we ended up having to, like I said, Jason didn't have any mobile experience, so he had to learn. So pretty much he ended up wrapping the web app right now So it's not the web app that's currently in the store isn't a true native. I mean, you really can't tell unless you really know how to code. He wrapped it in Cordova, and pretty much made it a mobile app that way. So we have the
Wow. Okay.
Android version, and we have the iOS version. So we got the iOS version done first, and then we did the Android version. Because once you kind of pass all of the issues with Android, then you can be pretty certain. Once you pass all the issues with Apple, you can be pretty certain that the Android one is going to be solid because Apple then dings everything that you had going wrong. So, yeah. So by the time
I know about it. I know about it.
It can be ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like
Apple is very stringent.
Yeah.
Android, it'll take it like that.
Android,
Apple, you might be waiting a couple weeks.
It don't even gotta be working. Android to take it. Like all you gotta do is just load.
My next question might start bringing us full circle here. You mentioned during your Technori talk that your company has done about 30 plus events at that particular time, but your goal is to target the 225 million people out of the 2 million events that occur. You want to capture about 25% of that market. How far along are you with that goal right now?
So right now we're getting customers. The goal is to really get to the point and get enough traction where we can kind of start raising more favorably, right? Because to get to that 225 million people, 25% of those events, we're gonna have to scale. And I don't got a rich uncle. He doesn't have a rich uncle. None of that. Yeah. So I got a rich cousin, but he ain't giving nothing up. But that's a whole other story. Just keep it to 1,000. Pretty much, for the most part, it's just working, man, just grinding and getting customers, taking it one customer at a time and making things happen, and just staying united as a team and staying focused and getting things done. So, pretty much we're hoping that 2017 is a big year. We're hoping that we hit the metrics that we're seeking to hit. I got some great people who've been advising me, and we're just trying to hit those numbers and then use that as leverage, to go ahead and start raising around and whatnot. So I mean, and I find the equity crowdfunding, phenomenon very interesting as well. So I've been doing a little research on that also, because that may be, our initial move when we start raising.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. So obviously, you guys have some goals set for 2017. Mm-hmm. You have an app in the App Store. You have obviously a board of advisors. You've gone through, different pitch competitions. And if I remember correctly, you haven't raised any money yet, but essentially, and I think, you really hit on something that I am a firm believer on is, getting that proof of concept, showing some traction before you even try to raise any money. Because I think, like you said, holding on to that equity it can be very valuable. If you do get to the point where you're able to sell, whether it's your business or the application or your intellectual property. So that's a very good point.
And then also, I mean, the more you seem to have it together, the less like people who do invest in you will be on your back. Because really, from what I've seen with colleagues of mine who's raised rounds, that it's almost like you don't really 100% own your company no more. You're working on somebody else's dime at that point, right? So if they telling you they want to do this, you gotta really listen to that. You gotta be able to. So the thing is, I also feel like by really getting early traction on your own, you come with some credibility. You come with some credibility that you wouldn't have if you kind of, are earlier on in the process and, you really don't have a business model yet. You haven't really generated no revenues yet. You just have a really cool idea, So I mean, I just look at it from that, because everything's psychological for me. So I look at it from that standpoint as well.
Yeah, and I also want to just call it really quick. What you were saying there. So, just for our audience, just for clarification, what Jason was getting at was, when you do take on these investors, you're essentially beholden to them in the sense that, they're counting their money, right? They want to know how you're spending it, what you're doing, why you decided to take a vacation. In a certain extent, they essentially become almost a boss, right? And most people get into entrepreneurship, because they don't want to have a boss. But when you take on financing or investors a little bit too early, what happens is you become beholden to these people that have invested in your company, and you're essentially, kind of a shepherd, if you will, of their funds. And they want to make sure that you're, making sure that they want to make sure that you're not losing their money. And that's essentially what Jason was getting at. And I think that's a very, very, very valid point.
And can I add to that too? I forgot who gave me this advice, but I think somebody at PowerMoves gave me this advice. But they were like, you can own 100% of like a $10 to $15 million technology company, right? So everybody has these visions of just, getting this becoming Facebook, becoming Google, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you could own 100% of like a technology company doing 10 to 15 million in revenue, right? And be good versus, possibly, taking all this equity, trying to scale up. And, you might be a $200 million, $300 million company, or you might get a nice little exit if you're lucky. But you got to deal with the headache of, somebody, being beholden to somebody else, even them removing you from your own company that you founded. So, I mean, pretty much, if we can get to a point where we're able to do a couple million in revenue on our own, I'm completely fine with that. But
I think that's the beauty of this podcast existing right now. Finding people like yourself who are having success outside of the bubble, because everything that you hear within Silicon Valley that makes headlines, but your success, where you're at, in your environment, in your backyard, defining that success doesn't have to match the headlines. It's also something that's been echoed from some of our other featured guests as well. And one additional thing that every featured guest has done is related to our final segment of the show called Dropping Gems. These are questions that we ask. These are the final questions that we ask all of our guests. And there are key questions that our listeners can take away some actionable steps to implement in their lives. I'm just going to go ahead and start with the first question. And you kind of mentioned some tools that you used in the past earlier. So it kind of ties into this. I was hoping you can share the top 3 tools that you would recommend for someone just starting out who has the idea in mind but hasn't taken that first step.
Okay. 3 tools I would recommend. This is a new one. I wish I would have had this one when I was getting started. Bubble. Bubble.is is the domain. So Bubble is a visual programming tool. So you can actually build like a legitimate app using Bubble, but it doesn't require any coding. There's a little learning curve, but you don't require any coding to learn how to use Bubble. So the great thing, so just an example of how powerful Bubble is. One guy rebuilt Twitter using Bubble. Like if you go to notrealtwitter.com, like that website is actually like built using Bubble. Like, and it's exactly Twitter. It's like exactly Twitter. But and I saw somebody else rebuild Instagram, and then there's actually a young.
So they do mobile apps too.
Yeah, you can build mobile apps on Bubble as well. So then there's a young lady that I don't know her personally, but she's a good friend of Thomas Stovall. Tara Reid, she has a platform called Collecto, and she's actually gotten funding for it. And, she's been in Forbes and everything, known as the founder who doesn't code. But she built her platform using Bubble. And she actually has classes that teaches people how to use Bubble. But Bubble is a really powerful tool. It's a great tool for people who have an idea for a startup. If they're willing to put a little time into, getting over the learning curve, which, if you really diligent, in about 30 days, you would pretty much be able to master the platform. But it's a really cool tool to use to get that MVP going and start getting customers. And it's growing. Like now they even have to the point, now they have originally they didn't have templates. Now you can buy templates. They also have, which are already ready-made, like sites, like they have an Airbnb template. They have like all type of different, they're building their template community. And then also it has all type of plugin access. Like, so you can basically use any type of, you can access any API basically with Bubble, and they already have a lot of other ones that you can integrate into your app that's already in the platform. So it's a really powerful tool. That's the first one I would recommend.
Awesome. I'm definitely gonna check that out. That sounds. I mean, I don't think I've heard about that one before. That sounds really dope. I'm definitely gonna check that out.
Yeah.
Bubble.is. Okay.
Bubble.is. Second one I would recommend.
What other tools do you use?
I would recommend. I talked about Proto.io, but I almost feel like Bubble make Proto obsolete, because basically it's about as easy to use as Proto, except you're actually building your app as opposed to just building like a interface.
Just a wireframe.
Yeah, wireframe. But I mean, I still recommend Proto. Proto.io is a really good tool to use to build your wireframes out. What's the third one?
You have a third one?
For people just starting out, a oldie but a goodie, YouTube. Anything you want to know about launching your business, startup, et cetera, YouTube's how you can get your education on how to do it.
Awesome. Those are some awesome suggestions right there. A few that I've never heard of before. I'm definitely going to check those out. So the next question that we like to ask our guest, Jason, how do you keep sane as an entrepreneur, as a tech founder? Like, what do you do to keep sane?
I meditate. I meditate twice a day. Pretty much that helps me out a whole lot. And when I don't meditate, I feel the difference. So meditation is one. I try to engage myself in creative outlets. Design. I'm trying to get back into writing some music. Nice. And then just coming up with business ideas. Like that's fun for me. Like just coming up with business ideas.
True entrepreneur.
And then just
always trying to solve problems.
Writing them down. Like if this don't work, I'm gonna do this next. Or when I exit on Konveau, I'm gonna do this next. Like I got like tons of them lined up. And then I enjoy a good cocktail. Yeah.
Nothing like an adult beverage.
Yeah, nothing like an adult beverage, and it actually stirs up my creativity as well. Believe it or not, I do my best work. I've written some great papers, after having some maker's mark.
Jason has admitted that he's writing his dissertation under the influence.
I've written some great papers, after a glass of maker's mark. Like,
oh man, you're like me. I like a Manhattan or old fashioned. Nothing like Maker's Mark. Yes, but that kind of leads us into our next question. Not the adult beverage part, but the business ideas part. What's your
favorite drink? I'm just kidding.
That's another podcast. Your favorite business book, though. What would you recommend?
Crossing the Chasm. By what's the gentleman's name? But it's a great book that teaches you how to launch a technology product. By Jeffrey A. Moore, Crossing the Chasm. Pretty much, it's like basically, and I love it because it has a psychology element to it. So it basically explains the technology adoption life cycle, and it explains, like basically you're reselling your product to 5 different customers, right? So then the goal is to go through the technology adoption cycle and to get the market in each of those, and to get the market in each one of those psychographics, those profiles, right? So you start off with the innovators. So the innovators are the people like us who just love technology for technology's sake. You get them excited about it, et cetera, et cetera. And then they reference the visionaries. So the visionaries are individuals who are like forward thinking, and then they see like the potential of using your platform to help them achieve their business goals. And and the thing is with them, they love the early stuff because if everybody's using it, it's no longer innovative. So like with visionaries, they're going to be your first customers, right? So the thing that the book explains is that with markets, in order to move into other markets, you have to get referenced by the previous, right? So the innovators are the ones who introduce the platforms to the visionaries, right? So, but then what ends up happening is there's a chasm right in between the innovators and the early mainstream. So with the early mainstream, they don't reference the visionaries because the visionaries view things differently, right? If a lot of people have like been saying they're using it, it's too late already. It's no longer sexy. It's no longer cool. Where with the pragmatists, which is the early mainstream, they want to see that other people are using it, right? So the book explains how you can jump that gap in between, and that's why they say a lot of technology companies die. They die with the visionaries because they're not able to make the jump to the early mainstream, which is where the money starts flowing in. So the book explains how to make that jump. It tells you how to.
I think I've heard that concept before, but I've actually never read that book, and that definitely sounds something that we actually probably should read as we work on this podcast. Because right now we're definitely, part of the innovator tribe, right? Innovator tribe outside the bubble, and we definitely, probably have to jump that chasm at some point. So that's definitely a book that I'm definitely going to try to check out at some point.
It was recommended to me by one of the founders. I was at a panel discussion at Post Exchange at University of Chicago. One of the founders of ParkWiz, we had a private conversation.
Oh, ParkWiz, okay. Yeah,
he said every successful entrepreneur that he's known has read this book. So I was like, oh.
Okay. So we definitely need to read it then. So, we'll definitely include that book in the show notes as well. Chasm by who?
By Jeffrey A. Moore.
Okay, Chasm by Jeffrey A. Moore. You guys definitely need to check that out.
Yeah.
Cool. And then so our last question, and some people usually need to think about this one. But Jason, what is something that you do not want an app to replace?
That's a good question. I have an answer, right? And it's part of and my answer is part of the reason that we use Konveau, right? I don't want an app to replace human interaction and human connection, right? So that's the problem that we have right now. Social media has made us antisocial. So we have all of these people that's on our Facebook profiles that we claim are friends, but when we see them in person, we don't speak to them, or we don't, or anything like that. Like we have these digital lives that actually separated us from connecting with others. So that's part of the reason we created Konveau, was to help people make more meaningful connections. So Konveau doesn't replace human-to-human interaction. It enhances it and it makes it easier. So pretty much, and the thing is, if it wasn't for social media making us antisocial, we wouldn't need Konveau. But we need Konveau because social media has made us antisocial. So what's happening now, and I don't know if you noticed with some of the platforms coming out, right now, the sharing economy is big, but what I like to call the people hacking revolution is coming upon us. There's a lot of platforms that's coming out now that focus on improving interactions with people, like, or giving you like information before meeting people, like Charlie, which is a Chicago-based startup. It's a lot of platforms that's focusing on solving the issue of human connection. And that's the next forefront. And, I'm excited about that because, but that's really where it's going, because we've been taken away from human connection. We've been taken so far from human connection. and knowing how to just talk to people and converse and start a conversation, that we need technology to help us fix it. But pretty much, I don't want an app to replace that. That's all we do is enhance it. We don't want
I agree. And I think that's definitely what we're trying to do here. Have conversations and share these conversations, right? Because honestly, the even the idea behind Outside the Bubble was just me and Ahmad having these conversations. A lot, us having these conversations with other people, and we just felt like this is something that we definitely wanted to just share with the world, and hopefully other people can take some great things away from it. And first of all, I gotta give credit to Ahmad, because that was definitely a good question, and I gotta give credit where it's due. That was definitely Ahmad's question.
I appreciate it.
That was a dope question. I'm like, what? Hold up.
I don't want Ahmad mad at me saying I took credit for his question.
No worries. It's a team effort. But Jason, your answer is kind of like a full story of your progression from how you had the idea to where you are at today, where Konveau is for networking powered by personality science. As a reminder from your Technori speech, why would anyone want to network naked? No one can ever forget that phrase, and I can't wait to attend an event powered by Konveau.
Is it naked or naked?
Naked. Why? Stop networking naked.
Is it tomato or tomata?
Southside Chicago answer. Is it naked or naked? Let's clarify that real quick.
Come on, man. Is it car or car? I say all that, man, to thank you for taking the time to share your story and your journey, and sharing with our listeners that if you have this entrepreneurial drive, you can get crafty, you can connect with an amazing team and build a MVP. You're going to make mistakes, but you're going to get some advisors along the way who are going to mentor you and show you the route to get your idea built and shared among the world. And you're fulfilling your passion in the same regard as well. Again, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story and breaking it down for our listeners to take away some actionable gems. I want to take the time for you to share with people how they can connect with you and learn more about your company.
Okay, awesome. So if people want to connect with me, they can connect with me via LinkedIn. You can just type in Jason William Johnson. I use my middle name William, so it's not Jason Williams Johnson. It's Jason William is my middle name Johnson, because there's 8 million Jason Johnsons out there, and some of them done some very violent things, and I don't want to be associated with them.
He googled himself. He's like, "Oh, that got me.
Like, so
I didn't do that."
I typed in just Jason Johnson before, and I've seen all type of county pictures, all colors, all creeds. I think I'm like, what? I see them in all shapes, forms, and fashions: black, white, Hispanic, Chinese. Jason Johnson.
That's funny.
Reached on Facebook, again, facebook.com/Jason William Johnson. You can connect with us on Twitter. We got to start using our Twitter account more, at Konveau, KONVEAU. Definitely check out our website, Konveau.com, if you want to learn more about the platform and how to use it at your next event. Also, anybody who's in New Orleans, I'll be a presenter at the at New Orleans Entrepreneur Week in March, from the festivals from the 19th to the 24th. I believe I'll be speaking on Tuesday the 21st, and the details for that can be found on the website, noew.org, I believe. So that's about it.
Awesome. Sounds like you guys are staying busy.
Trying to.
Thanks again, man, for taking the time to share your story. We want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. We will have details to all the gems that Jason dropped with links in the show notes for everybody. Again, thank you, Jason, and I look forward to learning about your future success with Konveau.
All right, sounds good.